In the kingdom of Velioth, there were many pubs, taverns, and inns where one could go to get a cold drink and a hot meal. Of all these places, none served better food than a small out-of-the-way place called the Jolly Sling. A nice old lady named Mina Kindler was the owner and only cook, and every day she prepared the best meals anyone had ever tasted. On an occasion no more special than it was a Tuesday night, Mina would create such feasts as roast goose strewn with caraway seeds, cheese rolls filled with almonds, honey, and vegetables, smoked fresh trout fillet with apple-stuffed mushrooms, edder caps soaked in melted butter with beef braised in ginger and cinnamon, and for dessert, layers of fennel dough filled with chopped walnuts and sugar covered in honeyed syrup and baked until they were pastries the color of a golden wheat field waving in a sunlit breeze. The Jolly Sling wasn't much more than a shack, but the food was so wonderful that people came from miles away to taste the delicious creations, and for a long time Mina was happy in her simple life. She would make delectable feasts every day, and her dining hall was always full of people who ate and laughed and sometimes even sang. Though Mina herself was somewhat quiet and shy, the Jolly Sling always rang out with merriment and happiness. Everything went on this way for many years, and Mina and the people in her village were happy. But one day, a new inn opened up. They had expensive rooms and hired a famous chef from the capital city. People said that his food would elevate the village and make it a more prestigious place to visit. Some even claimed that Chef Pardo had a magical spoon that would sing the most beautiful song in the world. When the Silver Crier Inn opened up for business, everyone was excited to try the food and to meet the famous chef. They wanted to hear for themselves if the rumors about the magical spoon were real. The first night it opened, hardly anyone came to the Jolly Sling, and every night for almost a week Mina had so much food left over that she had to throw some of it away. This had not happened for many years, and Mina was worried that the Jolly Sling might go out of business. Even worse than that was the fact that Mina was lonely. She missed seeing happy crowds of people enjoying her food and watching them go home so full and content that it seemed their britches might burst at the buttons. Mina worried about it day and night and wondered what she could do. She didn't have a magical spoon and wasn't famous. She always did the very best she could when cooking her meals, and she knew that there was no way to make them taste any better. How could she get her customers back? One night, Mina thought back to when she was a little girl. A fortune teller had come through the town, and using a magical ring, he had been able to tell people amazing things. Sometimes he would tell people about themselves. Sometimes he would give them advice, and sometimes he would even foretell the future. A few of the older people told Mina that the fortune teller was a fake, but everyone seemed to enjoy his company nonetheless. Whether or not his magic was real, the important part to Mina was this. For the few days he was there, most of the townspeople crowded around him. This gave Mina an idea. If she had a magical way to tell people's fortune, maybe they would crowd into her kitchen the way they used to. But she didn't have any magic, and she didn't know how to get any. In fact, Mina didn't even know if magic was real. She sighed and then sat back down on her chair to stare into the fire. Her mind cleared as she relaxed and looked into the crackling flames. She always seemed to get the answer to her questions when she stared into the fire, and tonight was no exception. Some of the people in the village were given to believing in strange things. They were quick to blame fairies or goblins for things that happened. Maybe she could trick them into thinking she had magic. Mina formed a plan and got ready for the next night. Whoever showed up to her kitchen tomorrow night, she would tell them that her fire was magic, that if they stared into it and thought about a problem they had, the answer would come to them. She would even throw a special herb into the fire that would make the flames look red. The next day, precisely at sundown, the very person she hoped for came walking through the front door. Della Gladden was the most gullible and gossipy person in the village. If Mina could fool her, she would tell everyone about the magical fire. Mina went to talk to her, and Della was all too glad to talk about her problems. She told Mina about bugs that were eating the peppers in her garden. She didn't know whether to put frogs in her garden to eat the bugs, or to hang flags that would wave in the wind and shoo the bugs away. She didn't have enough money to do both, and couldn't decide which method to try. Mina looked thoughtful, and then glanced around from side to side, pretending to make sure no one was listening. She spoke to Della in a quiet voice. "Don't tell anyone, but I might be able to help you," she whispered. "My fire here is magical." Della sat up at attention and glanced at the fire curiously. "You know," she said, "I've always thought that fire was strange. How does it work?" Mina led her over to the seat in front of the fireplace. "You sit just here and stare into the flames while thinking about your question. The fire will tell you the right thing to do. Sometimes you'll get an idea you didn't think of before. Sometimes, if you can't decide between two things, suddenly one will become the obvious choice. You can tell that this is the fire talking, because it will glow red whenever it has an answer for you." Della stared at Mina in amazement. "Could I try it? I need to know what to do about those bugs in my garden." Mina smiled and gestured towards the chair. While she did this, she secretly threw the special herbs into the fire so that it would turn red. "Of course you can, my old friend. Just scoot closer and look into the flames. Before long, you'll know exactly what to do." With that, Della squinted and stared into the fire as if she were trying to look through it and out the other side. Mina had barely started serving another customer when suddenly Della leapt up, shouting, "I've got it! I've got it! The fire gave me the answer! The frogs will eat all of the bugs, and they will make sweet music in the night to let me know all is well." She ran over to Mina and clasped her arms. "Thank you for letting me use your magical fire." The other customer, who was a very smart lawyer, looked astounded. "How much do I owe you?" asked Della. Mina threw her hands up. "Oh, no, nothing. You don't owe me just for looking into my fire. That's free. What'll people be charging for next? To drink their water?" The lawyer chimed in. "If you have a magical fire, it's your right to charge. You're providing a service, and it wouldn't be moral not to get paid." He looked at Della. "Give her 2 coins, and that should be fair." Della nodded in agreement and dug through her pouch for the coins. "Mina, I'm too excited to eat now. Have you got anything I can take with me?" Mina wrapped up a sandwich made with some good cheese and soft bread and raspberry preserves. Mina looked at them both. "You have to promise not to say anything about my magical fire. I don't want everyone coming in wanting to use it. After all, I'm a cook, not some kind of fortune teller." Both of them promised they wouldn't say a word about it to anyone, and both hurried off as if they had something important to do. Mina smiled because she knew what people were like, and she knew what would happen. Both of them would go off to whisper the secret of the magical fire to anyone who would listen. Mina's smile faded, though, because she felt guilty about tricking Della out of money. That was never what she wanted. At least she hadn't charged for the sandwich, so it came out even. But if anyone else wanted to pay her, she would have to be more insistent and refuse their money. The next evening, more people showed up at the Jolly Sling. Mina smiled to herself because she had guessed correctly at what would happen. As dinner was being served, several people came to her and talked about problems they had. They were obviously trying to get her to let them use her fire, but they realized they weren't supposed to know about its magical properties. Mina looked around at everyone and made an announcement. "I'm sure you all know by now that my fire is magical and can answer any problem with the correct solution. Unfortunately, the magic is not strong, and it can only answer one person's question each night. I won't hear of anyone trying to pay me for the use of my fire. All you need to do is show up for dinner, and I will give each of you a turn as soon as possible. Tonight, Robin Sadler will get her turn." All of the people pretended to be shocked about the news of her magical fire, but everyone knew that no one was really surprised. Robin Sadler approached. "What is your question for the fire?" Mina asked. Robin turned to the crowd. "I had a terrible argument with my sister a few weeks ago, and I'm afraid we may never get over it. But I love my sister and want to make amends. I have thought about sending a message to her, inviting her to celebrate the Festival of Stars with me next month. I don't know if this is too soon to try and make up with her. I want the fire to tell me whether I should invite her or wait." Mina showed her to the chair and sneakily threw the herbs into the fire. In a few moments they would start glowing red. She instructed Robin to think about her problem and stare into the flames. She told her that if they started to turn red, then the fire was trying to tell her something. She must concentrate very hard, and she would know the answer. Then Mina went back to serving dinner to her other guests. It wasn't very long until Robin leapt up and shouted, "The fire has told me the answer. I should invite my sister right away. If I wait, I may never have the courage to do it." The whole crowd began to cheer, and all the conversation was very excited for the rest of the night. The kitchen wasn't as full of people as it used to be, but Mina was sure that that would soon change when word got out. And right she was, for on the very next evening nearly every villager showed up to her kitchen. There were so many people she was afraid she wouldn't have enough food. Mina was very excited that her plan was working. But then, just as she started to choose who would get to use the fire tonight, the entire village began to shout and point at Carl Tanner. "He has a very serious matter," they said. "We all give up our turn tonight so that he can benefit from the wisdom of the magical fire." Carl explained that his little daughter Kirsche had fallen very ill in the night. She coughed until it seemed she might faint, and then she coughed some more. The village healer had examined her and speculated that this illness might be the dreaded ogre cough. Unfortunately, though, there was no way for even a skilled healer to know for sure if it was just a bad cold or ogre cough. The problem was, only one cure for the sickness existed, and it asked a terrible price. For any child who drank the elixir would be cured of the cough, but would grow up weak and frail, never able to do a day's work or even play in the sunshine. However, if the child did have ogre cough and did not receive the elixir, they would surely die. The healer had advised Carl to give Kirsche the elixir, even despite its price, and now here he was, hoping to gain some insight into this terrible tragedy from a phony magical fire. Mina turned pale when she heard Carl's story. To trick her friends into thinking she had a magical answer to their garden problems or argument with their siblings was one thing. No one was likely to be hurt. But here was another matter entirely. The very life and health of an innocent child was at stake, and it chilled Mina to the bone to think she might be involved in giving bad advice. Just as Carl was sitting down at the fire, she couldn't take it any more. "Stop!" she shouted. "I lied! I tricked you! My fire is not the way to find answers!" Carl looked at her surprised. "Are you saying I should follow the advice of the healer?" Mina thought hard and looked down at the ground. "I don't know what the right thing to do is. I only know that this fire is no more magical than the sack of potatoes I poured into tonight's stew. Carl, you will need to make this awful decision yourself." Now it was Carl's turn to go pale. The other diners asked him what he would do. As he walked slowly out the front door, he turned back to Mina. "I will go and talk to my wife and our daughter and ask them what they think. We will make a decision together." All of the people were staring at Mina, and she had never felt so badly in her life. She began to cry and explained to everyone how lonely she had gotten when they had left her to eat at the Silver Crier Inn. She explained how she had come up with her scheme and that she had never meant to hurt anyone. "I understand that you all must be very angry with me, and I won't blame you for going back to the Silver Crier. Even I am not sure that I deserve your patronage." She looked at the people, expecting them all to boo and leave together. But instead, they kept eating. One man asked for some more bread, and a woman called for more to drink. Mina was very confused and asked everyone why they didn't leave. One wise old man stood up and said, "We don't blame you for your trick, and quite frankly, we think your food is better than that arrogant Chef Pardo's. He is never happy enough with the compliments he gets, and that spoon of his, why, it only sings one song, and that gets tiresome after the first night." Mina cried with joy this time and promised that she would never again try to trick anyone. The people said they would keep eating there, and everyone was good to their word. As for the sick child Kirsche, when her father got home, she was already feeling much better, and they decided not to give her the elixir. She grew up strong and healthy, and even worked with Mina in her kitchen when she got older. Mina herself was grateful that she had learned an important lesson, and that no one had gotten hurt. She ran the jolly Sling and lived happily for the rest of her days.